Hello, my name is Jacek Łagun and I'm a teacher at the English Philology at Uniwersytetu Warmińsko-Mazurskiego in Olsztyn. And I'd like to talk to you today about a BA project that I did with a group of students last year. Well, the main idea was that I wanted my students to look for natural situations in which people discuss taboo topics and how people communicate taboo to others. And the first obstacle that I met while designing the course was the fact that generally people don't talk about taboo a lot. This is the first thing. The second thing is that if they do talk about taboos, you can't really record them without the permission. And if you do that, if you ask them for the permission, what happens is they are aware of the fact that they are being recorded, and they're aware of the fact that somebody is listening to what they are saying, and they basically alter the way they speak. So after thinking for some time, I came up with an idea which I understand wasn't perfect, but was still closer to being natural than asking people just to express their opinions in the street and record them then. I had a group of students, 12 people to be exact, and I told them that in our seminarium we would talk about taboos. I didn't tell them exactly what would be examined. I just told them that we would do something with the taboos. So what happened? Well, we sat down and they were supposed to discuss different taboo topics. But what they didn't know was that they wouldn't examine what they said, but how they talked about that. But before they started talking, we had to come up with something that the students would themselves see as taboo. So the first thing we did was create a list of taboo topics, different taboo topics. We spent a long time talking about that in one class. And out of this very long, about 30 or 40 different topics suggested by the students, out of this list, we came up with something that was like the final list of 12 most taboo topics. The students were given a Google form where they voted which topic they perceived the most taboo on the scale from 1 to 10. And after this voting, it came out that the most taboo topic for them was rape. Let me take a look at the list here so that I don't forget anything. Sexual abuse, abortion, feces, impotence, sexual deviations, sex addiction, masturbation. So as you can see, a lot of these were to do with sex and sexual life, sexual fetishes, pornography, addiction, and then the last two, death and suicide. So the students created this list and they were supposed to discuss these topics according to some kind of guidelines, some questions, again, they generated. But before they did that, I was really concerned with my students' well-being. I didn't want them to talk about things which could in any way infringe upon this well-being. And I didn't want them to get some problems, mental problems, because they discuss a topic they are not ready to discuss. So they had another survey. They took another survey in Google Forms, and in this survey, they were allowed to veto any topic that was in the discussion. They could say, no, I can't talk about that. Obviously, it was anonymous. I had no idea who, if they had vetoed, I wouldn't have known who that was. But no topic was vetoed. So basically, they talked about all the 12 topics I've just enumerated. So they talked, but again, it wasn't just like one big session when everybody talks. First, they talked in groups of 3. Some of them chose to be in a certain group. Some of them were just basically divided into groups of 3. I'll talk about that in a moment. And they talked in groups of 3, and every topic was given 15 minutes of discussion time. After 15 minutes, they moved on to the next topic. I wasn't present during those discussions because I knew that my presence would influence the way they speak, they communicate. So I basically left the room, or the rooms, because actually they were in 2 different rooms sitting separately from each other so that they couldn't hear each other. And I left the rooms, and I just popped into every room every 15 minutes just to tell them that the timer was up and they were supposed to talk about the next topic. Just a technical note, all the discussions were recorded with at least 2 mobile phones, just in case one doesn't work, so that all the discussion isn't lost. And after 2 sessions of talking, in groups of 3, the students had 2 more sessions of discussions, the same topics, the same questions, but this time they worked in one big group. That was for a purpose. One of the things I wanted my students to see is whether the number of people talking about something influences the way we express or we communicate taboos. Another thing or other things I wanted my students to examine was how the gender of people we talk to changes the way we communicate. Those smaller groups I've told you about were, well, let's say, they had different genders, or different gender makeup. One group was women only, and the other groups were like 2 men, 1 woman, 2 women, 1 man. So basically they were mixed. And the students, while examining how things were expressed, also paid attention to how they were expressed by different genders in different gender settings. One more thing that I wanted, and my students actually did, that I wanted to be examined was how the relationship between people in a group changes the way they communicate. One of the groups was consisted of 3 close friends, and the other groups, included only people who only knew each other. They were students from the same year, but they didn't have any close relationship. So by comparing this one group to the other groups, you could see different patterns of communication emerging. After all the recordings were taken, the students were also asked to complete something that was called auto-reflective survey, in which they were supposed to look at some questions prepared by me and kind of think about the way they communicated in the recordings. An interesting thing, just one thing that came up was that one of the questions was that students were asked to enumerate or give words which they used most frequently, and I think nobody actually gave the word they used most frequently. Sometimes, that's really interesting, they said, I use this word most frequently, and they didn't use this word even once. So this is just one outcome of the research. There were a good few observations that my students made while working on the topic, and they did notice some very interesting patterns, but I don't want to tell you. If you're interested, you have to find the work, or you can contact me, you can email me. It's very easy to find my email, my university email. Oh, well, I can give it to you right now. It's jacek.lagun@uwm.edu.pl. So once again, jacek.lagun@uwm.edu.pl. All in all, I believe that was a very interesting experience, at least to me, to see that you can try and find some material which, once again, is not perfectly natural, but still there has traits of natural conversation, and finding those topics that generally people don't talk about. Well, taboo is taboo. People don't talk about taboos in most situations, and see how they are expressed, and whether men or women are more open about some topics, and whether it's easier to talk about something for a man or woman. And some of the findings were really, really surprising. So if you're interested, you're invited to take a look at the results. If you want to conduct research in the same way, I think it's a great idea. Maybe you will see that the results are the same, or maybe they are different. Then we could have a discussion why and what could be done. If you have any ideas of how I could improve this research project for my students in the future, again, you're welcome to send your suggestions. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much for spending your time listening to this video, and goodbye.